Okay, I'm going to call the order Social Services Subcommittee to order. Any declarations of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none, there's no delegation scheduled. And first up is about our community income tax service.
Good afternoon. Through the chair, I'll speak to this management report. As you know, we've been doing these community income tax services since 1989. We want to put a thank you out to the 3 local accounting firms, BDO Canada LLP, Palm and Company, and McCutcheon and Pierce, who helped with complete the income tax this year. We had 100 appointment time slots that were reserved, and the eligible residents included individuals with an annual income of less than 18,000 and couples with an annual income of less than 28,000. Again, for the second year, we did have to make some amendments to the program because of COVID, where we facilitated the returns through our office. But with all in all, it was successful. Since its inception, the program averages about 137 people that we are able to serve each year. This year, 100 people were served, which is lower than previous years, but we contribute that to COVID, not the lack of interest in the program. And we're grateful again for this program to continue to our low-income families. So that is the report. If there's any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? I just have a comment. I think it's a great thing we're offering to the citizens. Councillor Vakalakis, do you have something?
No, I was just going to move well, I guess we're receiving.
Oh, that's great. That the report on the annual community income tax clinic activities and outcomes be received for information, and that social services issues a thank you to all the businesses that offered and provided their support and services, and especially this last year because of the COVID. It's pretty bad, right? So if there's no questions or comments, all in favor? Carried. So a report of the manager of housing, and very sorry to hear that Eden's off to a new adventure somewhere else, little devil. Anyway, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And I look forward to telling you about it, but do know that I want to thank you for all the opportunities I've been given here. I'm continuing in the affordable housing world, and the experiences here will really help support me in the future. What I'm presenting today, I'm really pleased to present you. This is the 7th year we've put forward an annual report on our 10-year housing and homelessness plan. This is the first year that it is based on the new plan update that we presented to you last year. Obviously, with COVID, this was an interesting year because we were able to continue to do a lot. The team is to be congratulated, particularly with the introduction of the Social Services Relief Fund. So just to give you a few of the highlights, we've really moved forward the work around coordinated access, which is our leadership table to end and prevent homelessness, which is being spearheaded by Alex. We have increased the number of attainable housing options in the community. Primarily, this happened through the introduction of a brand new portable housing program called COB, the Canada Ontario Housing Benefit. And we are hoping with the National Housing Strategy to see some further enhancements to that program over the coming years. We also know that 83 households who are listed on our by name list were moved into permanent housing options. We moved close to 80 households off our centralized wait list into permanent geared to income housing programs. we were able to relaunch the Affordable Homeownership Loan Program. And this is an exciting relaunch because we did it with the proceeds of individuals who had received the loans in previous years. When they sold their house, if they would pay back some of that money, and we've been able to relaunch it. So that's exciting to see that program revamped. And what else did we do? Sorry, flipped to the wrong screen. We also allocated a few $100,000 out of a new program called the Canada-Ontario Community Housing Initiative to our community housing providers, which really helps the nonprofits and co-ops with making some essential capital repairs. And a lot of our smaller community housing providers don't have the ability to raise the capital. So that's a really value added funding to go to them. And as you know, as of January 1st this year, there were some changes to the Housing Services Act as far as how the waitlist was processed down to one offer. And this summer we moved to a simplified RGI calculation process. And so we've been running a number of workshops with community partners and providers about those changes and what that means over last year. So what happens now is we've given you a Word version of this document. The PDF, the pretty graphic version, will be ready for your council meeting on June 28th. So you will have a copy of that in your package. It needs to be submitted to the ministry once council's had a chance to endorse it by the end of this month.
Any questions? Councillor Vasilakis?
Thank you. Thanks for the report, and there's a lot of really good work being done. I just want to talk a little bit about that home ownership affordability, and I think there's a little piece sort of missing, both in the rental, but even more on, and not missing on our part, just in general, that idea that we have vacancy rates for like rentals, and we know what a healthy vacancy rate is and what it isn't. And I find it interesting with home ownership. It talks about the average resale price, but it doesn't tell us what that distribution might look like and how many homes fall under that affordability. So it's one way to look at affordability, but then it's also, do we even have anything selling at $394? If that is that average resale, like I think it's that distribution that I'm really concerned about, and also the distribution of what the new builds are. So not only what is existing in the resale market, but then what are the prices of the new builds? And because we had that conversation around that missing middle, and I think if that homeownership affordability chart, it's just getting worse, right? Like there's a whole lot less gray shading in this than last year or the year before. And that trend is very worrying, because I think it just sort of then backs up into the rental and everything else. As I said, it's a real headwind there, and we've got some really good work that's being done in terms of all of the programs you just talked about. But at some point it'll catch up with us again if there aren't more affordable and middle range units. That's just, it's not a question or it's more of a comment on my worries looking 3 or 4 years down the road from this.
Well, through you, Chair, I appreciate that it is a comment. I wholeheartedly agree with you, Councillor Vasilakis. It is a challenge, and we get questions about the affordable home ownership program where people say, I can't even find a unit for under 400,000. The challenge we know is based on the income that we could approve a mortgage. Even if they wouldn't be able to manage the mortgage payment. But yes, it's looking that you need to be in the 80th percentile or above to afford a home in this community. And I just, I'll have this put together for you for next month, but we just redid the average market rental scan. We just discovered that the average housing price popped up again in the past 5 months. It's an enormous increase. I don't know what it was, but it's $550 right now.
And so So
But what you're talking about is how many units are actually going for sale under that? That's an excellent question. And it is something that Kim and I are working through as part of your strategic, this is our different project, the strategic plan and the KPIs, is we have been meeting with our planning partners and trying to figure out what those metrics could be. And I think that's where we need to bring in our partners in planning and Invest Stratford to say, like, we know the low end and we understand the affordability components. What we don't know is what the supply, how you measure that supply stock against that. We know within the units we fund and we support, but not within the private market, which makes up 95% of the housing stock.
and there are some really interesting data visualizations around how many units at what price that are used, and unfortunately all they show you is how bad the problem is. They don't necessarily point you in how you fix it, but I think sometimes until you realize how what the challenge is, because what you just said right now would put only people in the 90th percentile being able to afford an average resale price home.
Yep.
That is mind-boggling. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor Bunting?
Yeah, a question, and of course my screen has moved somewhere else. Meantime, wouldn't you? One of the statistics that was displayed was where the applicants are coming from, and I do believe 22% are from outside of Perth County. If I can find the page again, but
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, and I was wondering how those applications are handled. Like I realize, are they given the same opportunities as persons from within, and their success rate? Where does that fit into the equation?
So through the chair, the wait list is legislated, is a heavily regulated and legislated process by the province through the Housing Services Act. And so individuals come off it by chronological date. So the longest you've been on, that person gets the first offer. Obviously that changes depending on, because people have an opportunity to select their buildings that they want to go to. So it depends on unit size, location, and so forth. We have some properties that there's a smaller wait list than others. And you can be on as many wait lists for each. It's almost like little wait lists for each building. But it is a provincial system. And just as we have 22% of people from outside the province, Perth County, and it could be anywhere in Canada, can be a Canadian resident. So it's not just that you would be in Ontario, but you can be rest assured that Stratford and Perth County St. Mary's residents are probably on London's waitlist and Waterloo's waitlist and so forth. And it just goes to show the demand for affordable housing across the province. And to be honest, our waitlist is a lot smaller than if you go into the bigger municipal areas around the GTA, where you're seeing 10 to 15 years where people are waiting. So a lot of times people do get on units. The success rate, we haven't tracked it, but it's mixed. Sometimes people move and they realize they're not near family members, and that's challenging for them. Other times, people come and are welcome to the system. We did this year introduce an online application portal, and we noticed that increased the number of applications from external.
Thank
More
you.
so than we don't get them so much from local, but yeah.
Thanks.
Kathy, did you have another question?
I had a quick question, and I don't know how useful of a metric it is, but we used to include in these reports number of the time that average time that someone would spend on the wait list. It's been a couple of years since is there a rationale for not including it? I mean, I can think of a few, but maybe you can illuminate that a little bit.
So through your chair, to be frank, the wait list is not my favorite indicator at all. It is not an indicator of housing need. I think you're better at looking at things like core housing need and some other ones. The wait list is, because it's very regulated, it limits individuals who can be on it. For example, If you owe arrears to any provider, let's say you damaged a unit and moved out and you owe a couple $1,000s, if you do not pay off or into a repayment agreement, you cannot get back on the wait list. And so there, because of that, and because of the length of time, there's a lot of people who don't bother to get on it. So it's not an accurate reflection of need.
So it's,
But timing is very difficult for us to estimate because it varies. It just changes. So we tend to not provide individuals with how long you're going to be on the wait list or that, because we can't guesstimate it.
so it's a blunt measure that's not very
It's
useful.
a blunt measure. I prefer to look at the turnover on it, how many people are coming in versus how many people are going off of it.
Okay, thank you.
Jody, we're on 5.1, and I'm glad you were able to make it. I had a couple questions. So you've been obviously doing a lot of work on this, and I'm just wondering if any of the communities or do you ever talk about the fact about cities having a policy on when builders are building that they have to have like one house or a certain percentage that they have to build them to be affordable? Have you heard of anything like that?
Through you, Chair, that's more about affordable housing versus the permanent social housing. So the rent geared to income housing that we pull off our wait list for, those units are legislated and listed under that as designated housing projects under the Housing Services Act. They receive operating subsidies as such. And so there is money that flows through the province to us, and we also help subsidize those. The affordable units you're talking about increasing, that's something called inclusionary zoning. And you really need to talk to our partners in the planning department because that's really about that. However, there are policies that you can allow to do that, but not, and then they tend to be tied to major transit routes. So there's, if you're familiar with the Planning Act, it has to do with, and this is not my forte, but it really has to do with, so certain areas of the province can do inclusionary zoning, and we don't have that ability. But there was a little bit of mention of that in yesterday's report from Invest Stratford.
And my other one, I think you sort of answered it. I was wondering if it's hard to track when people are selling their homes, like you're saying, how we receive a portion back when they sell their homes, but it's because they're on a list, right?
Through you, Chair, absolutely. So those affordable home ownership ones, because they have a loan with us and we're listed as a on the mortgage, like as a second lender, then when you sell your home or you pay off your mortgage, then we find out about that. Or if we've given a capital grant to a developer to build a unit, not only they have to maintain it for 20 years, and as part of that, they have an agreement, and we have to submit to the Ministry of Housing on an annual basis how many units, what the rental rates are, and so forth. So we do keep track of those ones, but as I said, most of our housing, it represents less than 5% of the total stock in the community.
Do we have many homes that people live in? It's 20 years, right, that they have to live in it?
No, that the developer maintains it, yes.
Do we have many homes that people live longer than that and go off the list then?
The ones that we have funded through those programs, the earliest would have been around 2012, 2013. So we haven't hit that 20-year mark.
Okay.
The community housing stock, which is within the rent geared to income, those mortgages are coming up. So there were 3 federal projects that the mortgages were paid off, and those were like 35-year mortgages. They're a little different because they are typically nonprofit organizations and boards. So there's an interest from them for maintaining geared to income, and most of them are doing that within their own stock. They're able to, they'll maintain it while the person lives there, and then possibly when the person moves out, they'll flip that unit to market. But we're having ongoing conversations with the nonprofit stock to make sure that they maintain a portion of rent geared to income.
So if somebody sells their home, is it still on our list and then the new person buying it goes on the 20-year agreement? No.
Through you, Chair, for the affordable home loan ownership program, it's particular to that individual in that house. So once they sell that house, the loan gets repaid. If they live in it for more than 20 years, the loan is forgiven and it becomes a grant to them. But a lot of them are taking advantage of the nice housing prices right now in the community, and upgrading a little bit. We have very good success rate through that program.
So as we well, we won't really know yet, but I guess, what is our plans as we start to lose these homes? Are we have some way to bring new ones in?
Well, one of the things we're waiting on the future allocation under the National Housing Strategy. We got a 3-year. So one of the things we could look at, we used a lot of the federal capital money for Britannia 2 this time. Next time, and I'll put together some recommendations for Kim before I leave, but one of the things you could do is top up that affordable home ownership program so you could do some more things with it.
Because as people apply for the loan and then buy a house, that's how they get on the list, right? Or no?
It's not a list, it's just a number of binders, and it's particular, it just helps them it moves people along the housing continuum where they move from rental to ownership, and as I said, the people develop a bit of equity and assets, and that's wonderful, and that helps them move out of poverty. Perfect.
Jody?
Thank you. Yeah, further to that, it's the first time buyer program, right, that we're talking about. Yeah, because somebody reached out to me about entering that program, and I think the challenge right now, which we don't really have a lot of control over, is the amount that you're allowed to lend. Like the house can only be worth just over 400,000. So right now there's almost nothing on the market. So the people we had in there who bought a few years ago would have really benefited from those prices, but bringing new people on is going to be really hard, or for them to qualify that they would have enough income for that type of mortgage, plus, only be able to buy a house that's just over 400,000. So there's some challenges there, but those prices are that maximum house price is set by the province. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair, that the maximum house price is set by the province, but I think it's really important to understand that if it's based on mortgage affordability as well. So the average house price is based on the market, but what we want people to be successful in that program. And if we approve a loan or mortgage for somebody who has an income below that, you're talking about individuals with low incomes carrying a mortgage of over $350,000. I don't know how much mortgage you carried when you first started out, but I would guess it was nowhere near that. And you had.
Yeah, so there's some real challenges right now with the way the market is. That's kind of unfortunate. I did have another question too. As I was reading through, I saw that the average length of stay was 29 nights for emergency accommodation. Is that higher than we would normally see? And I'm just wondering if that, I think that our policy is 14 days, but if does that match with what the need is?
I'm going to defer to Kim. It's about COVID.
Actually, through the chair, I'm going to bring Alex on to speak to this. Thanks.
Okay.
Through the chair, part of the extension or the additional average length of stay that you saw through emergency accommodations was in part due to additional funding we received through Social Service Relief Fund to offset the impact of COVID, knowing that the secondary housing market quite often is not, so individuals cannot couch surf or stay with friends or stay with family as often as they could before. So we did see an increased need, and due to the multiple lockdowns that occurred or stay-at-home orders that occurred, we supported individuals through those stays to ensure that they had some place to stay, just to ensure that they were in a safe place, and we could attach different supports to them to look at longer term stays in motel to support with trying to find housing outcomes at the end of that. So that stay is very indicative of what occurred over the last year. I would not say that's a trend you'll see continuing. We are seeing longer term stays or supports required for longer term, part and parcel due to the increased rental prices that are occurring right now. So we generally are looking at those stays and trying to analyze the emergency housing program to ensure it's meeting the needs within the funding portfolio that we have.
Right. It's always a challenge, I think. But those challenges remain. I mean, people still, it's you aren't supposed to just, show up and couch surf yet. So, those supports probably need to stay in place. So have we used up all the funding that we got for this year for that top up funding?
Through the chair, no, we are looking at the third, as reported, the third SSRF, and we are allocating it, really analyzing the supports we need for recovery at this point.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Sorry, Kathy?
This tweaked me too, and I don't know, I think there's a really interesting study out of a US city that decided to go away from a shelter system to hotel stays and it was a survey of the people who actually use, like the clients, and it was fascinating how much better people felt about themselves and everything else when they had hotel stays and they had their own space. And so I just bring that up because I know Bonnie, and a few times that conversation around shelter versus hotel stay has come up with the members of the public, especially about not having a shelter. And I thought it was a really interesting study where people were asked who had spent a lot of time in the shelter system how they felt about this shift to hotel stays. I forget. I should I'll pull it out and send it around to the subcommittee sometime because I thought it was a really kind of cleverly done study.
Does anybody else have questions? I'm assuming where it says under that 22% says blank 5%. That's just people that didn't complete the application form out properly. That information was just missing. It's on page 10. It's got the priority status.
Yes, through you, Chair. Sorry, I had to look up the, too many screens, as everyone knows. I had to look up the statistic. Sometimes people do not fill in, opt not to fill that in of where they're coming from. So it's unknown.
That's what I figured.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Well, thank you very much for that report. And I look for a mover. Councillor Burbach. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, just a minute. I got to get back to my agenda here. 6.1 central intake implementation. And I guess that will be Alex.
Good afternoon, councillors. So thank you, Madam Chair. So we wanted to just bring information to you about the centralized intake implementation that will be occurring in the Ontario Works division. So we have a go live date actually of this coming Monday, June 21st, to participate in the centralized intake program. So once we are onboarded into the program with a large group of other service managers across the province, 35 of the 47 service managers will now be onboarded into centralized intake by this Monday, with the following service managers coming in the fall. So with centralized intake, we did discuss this previously, just kind of around the details of what this is going to look like. The large change will be for most Ontario Works applicants, they will be able to apply online, or they will be able to contact a centralized intake unit that will be handled by the province. With the online applications, they are able to go through what is called a risk-based eligibility determination. I will try to keep my acronyms to a minimum as I use them quite frequently. So the RBED system, what it will do is it will be able to pull in third-party checks from multiple sources that the province has built into an algorithm, a proprietary algorithm that they have. And it will actually be able to grant files that provide the proper ID verification before they even meet with a caseworker. So there's a chance that they're able to get their file granted. They will be made ongoing, receive their first payment, and then be referred to the local office for follow-up by an Ontario Works case manager to complete some of that work towards employment goals and life stabilization supports at the local level. So with that, that is being built into what they're calling their SATA platform, so the Social Assistance Digital Application. So it's an enhanced application. It's a more user-friendly and intuitive application than what we're currently using. So as of Monday, individuals who are applying for Ontario Works can contact the centralized unit. They will always direct someone to go online first if that is possible. If not, they are able to call into the centralized intake unit at the province. If someone does not have access to internet or a telephone, they can still come into the local office and complete that application. If they're borrowing a phone for the moment and they're calling into the office and they're not going to have that phone for a few days after, they can still come in and complete that application at the local level. So it will not impact service delivery standards in that way. People will still be able to come in and apply through the local office, where we will be directing anyone who qualifies to the centralized unit. We still have the ability to complete those applications at the local level as well. So it is just a streamlined avenue for people to apply for assistance. At this time, we are working on changes to the website right now to reflect the changes for the application process. We will also be sending out messaging and communication to our community partners who support individuals who are in receipt of Ontario Works or may be applying for Ontario Works, so they are aware of where to go and where they can complete those applications. And then at this time, there is no financial impact to the city at this time with the changes to the centralized unit. The end state is they anticipate 70% of applications will be completed by the provincial unit, but we know that in the onboarding process, it does take a bit of time to get there. So we don't anticipate that many applications at first being completed. It will be a slow, gradual uptick until we get to that point.
Do we recommend to people that don't have a computer that they could go to the library and use their computer?
Yes, so we do offer, we have different avenues that we can recommend someone to, including the library and other places when they are open, of course, to complete those
Right.
applications online.
Okay, has anybody got any questions on that part of the report? No? So the staff recommendation is that the report titled Centralized Intake Information be received for information. Councillor Vakalosas is moving that. All in favor? Carried. So the next part of the report is the electronic document management implementation.
All right, so through you, Madam Chair, I just wanted to bring a high-level overview of we are moving towards what's called the electronic document management for the Ontario Works program. So what EDM is EDM is a centralized automated file management process that is uploaded into our provincial database. So what it is once files will actually be stored completely in our computer system. It will allow for seamless transfers between municipalities. Ontario Works to ODSP transfers will also be much more seamless, whereas currently we manually have to pull documents, put that file together, then move that over to ODSP. At this point, they will be able to pull that file directly from our computer system. So EDM offers a lot of benefits by way of it, the way it interacts with a lot of the services that the province is moving towards, including My Benefits, which allows clients to submit their information through My Benefits to us directly. So with EDM, it does offer, as I said, a lot of benefits that we've seen in offices we've talked to. It's all positive feedback that we have heard from frontline staff and from clients alike on the benefits of what this will offer. We are looking at working with the vendor of record for the province, as they are already in tuned and able to work through all of the different processes that the province has in place. They're cleared to work with the provincial databases. They're cleared to work in SAMS, which is our provincial database that we utilize. And they are, so we are moving ahead with having conversations with Nimble Technologies about bringing an on-site scanner. There's a few different options to choose. We felt the on-site scanner offered the highest level of customer service to our clients with the most minimal turnaround time for documents to be uploaded into SAMS. And I will say that any documents that get submitted, if they need to be actioned immediately, they can be actioned immediately. There is no wait time, so we are able to ensure that there's no drop in service delivery for our local clients.
Kathy? Sorry, I forgot I was on mute. Anybody have any questions, Councillor Vakalosas?
Thank you. I'm sorry. Every time you say EDM, I think electronic dance music. So it is going to take me quite some time to adjust. Okay, so that we'll leave that acronym aside, and I'm going to go just a little quick question on SAMS. So So they are able to work with SAMs. Are all the like, I know we haven't asked this in a while because we haven't seen it in a while. All the kinks worked out with SAMs, everything not so bad anymore? I'm just curious because some of us were here in the beginning. Remember that original November? I think we were elected in, October, and November SAMs came along. So I'm just curious for an update on how our friend Sam's is doing.
Through the chair, it's most of the issues have been ironed out with SAMs. There are still some unique things about the program, I will say, that you have to just get used to and learn. There are some workarounds that are still built into the system. I will say the province frequently addresses them. So they do about 4 or 5 major updates a year. This year, it's actually been much more frequent. We've seen updates every month on the system, especially with EDM and with centralized intake, a lot more changes that have had to happen. For the most part, those SAMs operates as advertised. There's a lot less issues that we're seeing. There's a lot less overpayments being created. It's much less frequent that we see issues that are preventing anything from occurring, or large scale issues that are really holding up and require multiple people to look at. Those are very few and far between now. They still exist. I will say there are still the odd issues that occur that we have to work through and log with the province. We still have the provincial help desk that is fairly responsive. They reach out to us if there's files that have any issues or are stuck in any way, shape, or form, where we are able to reach out for support. And the great thing, especially in the Southwest, we have a fantastic network of service managers across the Southwest. We're all very interconnected. If you're having an issue, you can get support and ask some questions to someone who may even be well-versed in that specific issue that has risen. So all in all, I would say SAMS is doing much better. Is it a perfect program? It's not. But compared to what you would have heard in 2014, 2015, and even 2016, much better than where we were at that point.
Really glad to hear that. Thank you.
So are we.
Well, it's unfortunate to hear that you're still having issues. Are they able to track why some files have issues over others? Is it maybe the type of provider they're using? Like I find some programs work better with Chrome and others work better with Firefox. And is it something like that, or is it unknown?
Through you, Chair, it's very specified what browser we can use, what all the different technical requirements are given to us by the province, very specific to what we can do when it comes to browser or Java or anything else that comes to the program. Most of the time when we have issues with files that are either stuck or we're having issues with them, a lot of times it's due to just a back-end problem that the system still has when you do things a certain way. Unfortunately, there's a break at the back end that can happen, but they are very prompt in looking at those and fixing those issues. So they are very quick and responsive, and they learn from those mistakes. So if something comes up that they've never seen before, they document that and they make sure that that doesn't happen again in the future. So they're very, they are very few. It's only a few a year that we see that are very minimal, less 3 or 4 maybe a year that we see. And generally sometimes it's a pattern in which you do things. It does something. I'm not a very technologically savvy person, so I can't really give you a full breakdown, but the way we do things in a certain order can lead to some issues in the back end on the program.
Okay. Councillor Bunting, you had some question or comment?
No, I was going to recommend, make a motion to accept the staff recommendation.
Okay, that's in order. Thank you. Did anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, let me get back here. Staff recommendation that the report titled Electronic Document Management Information, EDM, be received for information. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Oh, I guess that's it. Is there anything else that anybody wants to talk about, or?
Through you, Madam Chair, I just do want to note on Alex's 2 reports. We can see that the social service modernization is going through full force in the next year to 2. So we are seeing the centralized intake this month. We are seeing the EDM in October, and we will see the employment transformation coming quickly. So as we know, social assistance, we need to, as it stands now, you will see big changes by 2023 of how we operate at the CMSM level. So that's, I just want to keep you aware of the roadmap that we were given. And these changes are coming. They're not being delayed, and they're being implemented quickly.
Kathy?
So I had a quick question around, I realized, how do some of these implementations align with the end of CERB? Because I suspect that we're going to probably see an uptick in people going on Ontario work. I mean, I can't guarantee that, but I'm just wondering whether we should at least anticipate that we may be having an uptick in caseload at the same time that we're implementing some of these changes. I mean, I'm sure somebody's thought of it. I'm realizing it for myself that some of these timelines overlap.
Through the chair, you're correct. Is what you're seeing is that they're aligning with the CERB ending. So we do anticipate a strong increase on our caseload. We do because that's what happens under these circumstances. So some of the pressure will be relieved because the centralized intake to the province, but I am forecasting that the social assistance caseload will rise quite significantly from once the CERB ends.
Councillor Burbank?
So in a somewhat related question, and forgive me if this has already been asked today, are we seeing more homeless? Like anecdotally, it seems that I've seen more people living rough lately. So is this indicative of something that we're seeing on the list, or that people that are coming for support?
Through the chair, Alex, do you want to respond because you're more operational on that end? Because I'll speak more anecdotally. So can you speak to why we are seeing more visible homelessness at this point?
Through the chair, it's very similar to what we saw for increase in emergency housing. Would be there is still that lack of secondary options for a lot of individuals who then it leads them to sleeping rough. There's if they have quote unquote burned bridges with individuals and cannot return to stay with them, they don't have as many options available to them. Unfortunately, in the emergency housing program, we have expectations and rules that are in place that sometimes do lead to individuals being asked to leave emergency housing. We don't ever put a permanent ineligibility on someone. We review that on an ongoing basis. And if someone is sleeping rough, I do want to say we stay engaged with them. We stay communicating with them. We stay looking for housing with them. Our goal never changes. Our goal is still to find permanent housing for them in any way, shape, or form that we can. You will see across a lot of communities when we're on our calls with our service managers across the province, we are all seeing a similar pattern where we're seeing more individuals sleeping rough. Part of that is attributed to that stagnation in the rental market where we're not seeing people move out of those entry-level apartments, to say, for lack of a better word, moving into others. There's almost a bottleneck in that option. And when we're seeing more increased stress on emergency shelter systems or individuals who unfortunately don't have those other options that they had available to them pre-pandemic, we do see more individuals sleeping rough, unfortunately, as a result of this. We are aware of it. Our outreach team is out staying engaged with them and trying to look for as many options as we can with them.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I've had some people mention it to me, and honestly, I've seen it myself, and you want to help, but maybe, I don't know if you could give us a couple of suggestions. Like if I'm a concerned citizen and I come by somebody and I feel like, ooh, you know, that person looks like they need some help, what should we do?
Through the chair, during office hours, you call our office, 271-3773, extension 200, and we will direct outreach to go out and meet with the person. After hours outreach support, we do have through ShelterLink 519-272-2294, and if there's an immediate safety need, then it's the police who will help.
Okay, thank you very much.
Does anybody else have any questions, concerns, comments, or? And I think this time of year, some people that are homeless, that have been, you know, having to stay indoors for the winter, it's now nice weather to be out in. There's the odd person that prefers to be out. Not very many, but still, there's some that prefer to be out, and or there's, like you were saying, there's just some that I had questions asked of me the other day, and I explained to them where they could call, and also explained to them that sometimes because of abuse or alcohol or drugs or mental issues, that they have to be moved out for the safety of other people type thing. And but that staff still continues to work with them. So that's all we can really do. I mean, I know it's very frustrating, and obviously if you come across somebody like that, it's very, very, very upsetting. I mean, all you want to do is help, right? But you also have to be very careful. I know somebody that goes to London and helps out, and they've been attacked, and and people are having issues. They're not exactly thinking like somebody that's living in the home, and I guess I want to call it having it nice, but they have a different mindset. Not everybody, but some do, and you still have to be careful when you're trying to reach out and help. I've heard people on Facebook say they took them into their homes, and just be careful if you're helping. If people have good hearts and they want to help. So anyway, if there's nothing else, I could look for a mover to adjourn. Councillor Bacalasas, all in favor? Enjoy the rest of your evening, everybody. Bye.